This video here will be about my own alternate country which I submitted to the contest of Alternate History Hub. The link is in the description. Now I present you the country called Gothia, or as you wish, the Amalingian Empire. Why the Amalingian Empire? Well, the dynasty that reigned over the Ostrogothic kingdom was called the Amal dynasty. And that's where the name comes from. Now, I wrote 750 words as it was asked in the, as main part of the contest. And I will start. The first turning point for Gothia was the Battle of Vouillers. In 507, the Visigoths fought against the Franks. With the help of Burgundy and the Ostrogoths, the war turned into a white peace. Alaric II and his son survived. The Ostrogoths launched a surprise attack through the Alps, which forced the Franks to retreat. After the death of Theodoric, a regency was formed for his grandson. The mother Amalsunta and the king of the Visigoths, Alaric II, were part of that regency. Since Alaric II was respected, and since Theodoric wished Amalsunta to be part of the regency, there was little to no opposition, leaving both Gothic kingdoms stable. First step for the unification was done. The Byzantines only retook Exarchatus Africa, northern part of Africa where you had Carthago, continued their endless wars with the Sassanid Empire, and left Italy alone. The 530s brought many changes. The Pope as well as the Senate feared Justinian II and saw him as a threat. Alaric II understood this and tried to use the Pope and the Senate in his favor. Alaric tried to adopt Catholicism step by step to win the Pope and the Latin majority in both kingdoms for himself. It was met with opposition by many Arian Gothic nobles. The Goths lost wars and were in internal troubles for some years. Eventually, in the 540s, they united and the plague was less devastating for the Italian peninsula, as there was never a war with Byzantium to begin with. Around the 550s and 570s, the unified kingdom of Gothia conquered almost all of Iberia. The new Gothic king would be officially proclaimed as an emperor. Thus, the Gothia Amalingian Empire, Amal his dynasty, was born. In the 590s, Gothia participated in the war against Byzantium, which made them a dominant power in the western Mediterranean. Years later, they allied themselves with Breton kingdoms and took on the Franks. Through extensive fights and an alliance with Heraclius, who ruled separated from Constantinople's authority, the Amalingian Empire made considerable improvements in warfare technology. During the Arab invasions, much smaller than in our timeline, they were able to repel them by the use of Greek fire. From the 680s onwards to 700s, they took more or less indirect control of North Africa. They promised to protect the Exarchatus of Africa from the Arabs. The Vikings in the north didn't bother the Amalingian Empire too much. The Gothic marine could handle them with ease as they continuously improved Greek fire methods on sea. But the power grip on the Frankish, Celtic, Slavic borderlands weakened, resulting in powerful local dukes and a feudalism-like system for these regions. The rest stayed very centralized, much as Byzantium. Despite their stable situation, the army was never neglected, as it was the duty of almost every subject to be a good soldier. Cavalry was largely used, which helped them to fend off the Hungarians, Pechengs, spontaneous Arab mercenaries, or the Mongols from their empire. The core land could evolve continuously and technology advanced in many areas. Intern trade was never interrupted and there were continuous international routes from the British Isles to Sahara. Due to constant wars between Byzantium and New Persia, trade from Asia was very limited. This led to Gothia in the 1200s and the 1300s, to expand on the seas. Hearing from Vinlands and retaining many maps from antiquity, they established a trade system similar to the one of original timeline Portugal. They competed with Great Britain, Gothia, and Norse Kingdom for colonies. In the Old World, they were in a permanent cold war with Byzantium and the Franks, who solidified in the 1500s and became a strong, if not the main rival of Gothia. The Gothic allies were mostly found eastwards, like New Persia or Polska Rus. The Americas were never totally conquered, comparable to today's India, but the Goths established fiducism in there, similar to feudalism. Native countries promised to pay the gods while getting protection in return. There were less wars than in our world, but if there were wars, they were much more devastating, resulting in bigger losses. The worst wars were World War I and World War II, mostly initiated by the Franks, who lost all the time. The Amalingian Empire expanded steadily. A multipolar Cold War followed, where Byzantium, Polska Rus, New Persia, and the Amalingian Empire led loose alliances. In the 2000s, Gothia saw violent political tensions between loyalists, Christian fanatics, Democrats, fascists, imperialists, and technocrats, as well as Latin, Germanic, Celtic separatists, and I think Republicans. I don't know if I mentioned them. Anyways, afterwards it became clear that the fascists, imperialists, and technocrats won the tensions, which led the Amalingian Empire to an unknown path. People predict that the Amalingian Empire will conquer the world and become an interstellar empire in the far future. Yes, and I will now show you different maps that I made. The first one is obviously pointing out all the political situation. As you can see, you have, for instance, in the east now, as number 9, Gothia, also known as Amalingian Empire. You have Great Britain or Brace, which should be, how should I say, it should show that instead of the Normans, the Breton people actually went back to the British Isles with the support of, or the loose support of the Goths, and they managed to conquer it all for themselves back, because in original timeline, the Breton people have legends, and they even had titles that indicated huge possessions in the British Isles. Now, Polska Rus is a very, very huge Poland wank, where somehow the Poles managed to permanently absorb the Kievan Rus and then just replace Russia on the east, but never replacing Poland itself in the west. Byzantium is still a very important player because they have many vassal states as well as a huge economy in that timeline. New Persia, well, you can't really see it, but they are also one of the huge powers. Number 6, the Frankish Federal Republic, is more like an implication on today's Germany. And well, they used to be strong, but then they lost a lot and they just became what they are now. Gothia shows that they were a hugely an important sea power. So instead of the British Isles having this huge sea power, maritime power, it's more shared between all these northern countries like the North Kingdom or Gothia or Great Britain. Now Lietuvia is a country that I just, put as fantasy for something between Latvia and Lithuania. And Latvia is, I think in Latvian anyway, is called Latvia, whereas Lithuania is called Lietuva. Dacia is the Austria-Hungary in a very slightly different version of that timeline, where you have Hungary and Romania. Well, Romania in there is the place number 12, so it's a vassal state of Dacia, but it was more like just an funny, an idea that I had to create it. What else? Number 27. The Exarchatus Africae, which claims to be descendant of the Roman Empire, but is largely, if not totally, controlled by the Amalingian Empire. I put it as this because, as you know, in my series of how it's called again, Gothic Attack or Gothic Storm, I don't recall it anymore, sorry. But in one of my map series that I was making, or alternate history series, you can see how Byzantium was split in two. How there was a civil war between, was it now, not Herodotus, but I forgot his name, but anyway, he wanted to be the emperor of all Byzantium, which at that moment was still, of course, the Roman Empire. But of course, the emperor himself in Constantinople, he wouldn't just leave his throne and say, oh yeah, please come, you are now the emperor. No, it was a civil war, but since the Arabs invaded or tried to invade, they were forever split. And then the political and diplomatic situation looked like this, that this guy in Northern Africa, of course he would ally with the Goths, because they are his natural allies. Since the Goths, they don't like Byzantium, he could maybe see a chance that they would perhaps invade and reach Constantinople and say, well, my friend, just give us this money, these territories, and we will put you here, and we will make good deals, we will give you a bit of this, and it will be done. Well, that's how deals are made. Then anyways, as you can see, it didn't succeed, so all that this guy was left with was to become a permanent vassal of the Gothic Empire. And even so, they still claim to be the direct descendant of the Roman Empire. So in there we have this funny situation where you still have Byzantium, who actually is the Roman Empire, but not truly Roman. Then you have the Gothic Empire or Amalingian Empire, who has Rome and has the Senate and the Pope, and who de facto is also the Roman Empire. And then you have North Africa, who claims to be also the descendant of the Roman Empire, because they split from Byzantium and because this guy who was rebelling wanted to be the emperor of Rome. Yeah, now we will move on to the other pictures that I made. So as you can see, I made one where I show how the Frankish territories were lost. So after World War I, for instance, you have many territories that are won by Poland or even by the Goths. And then in World War II, what happened was more territories were lost by the Franks, and Sorbia got their independence. Now the next map that I prepared was one of fictional language borders. Yeah, it was fairly creative, I must say, and some of the stuff that you see in there is probably ASB. I mean, just look at number 13 Ostrogothic or number 14 Visigothic. I don't think they would for real survive under such conditions. But hey, let's say they did. And anyways, it's fiction. So as you can see, number 1 is the New Latin language. New Latin because all of these parts, regions, they were still, how should I say, they were continuously connected all the time. The same for number 5, Hispanian. It was continuously connected all the time. But of course, over the time, it will change a little bit. I mean, Latin won't stay forever Latin, even if it is spoken within the same borders. So I just came with these funny ideas, like let's say from Italy or Sicily up to the Mediterranean, Spain, where we have Catalonia, all of that would still be Latin, well, New Latin, because we have New Greek from Old Greek, so New Latin. Then we have Hispanian, because, well, I made the borders according to some of the mountain chains that we have, and also the division between Mediterranean coast and Atlantic coast, because you will have different trade routes, you will have different climates. You can still see a Celtic language over there, number 21, which I call just Celtish, but it could have any other name. Basque, I tried to improve Basque a lot. I put like Vandulian and then Basque and Mountain Basque, which was kind of funny name to put. Somehow I was like, okay, what could we put in the south of Portugal and Spain? And I just invented this Tartessian. Of course, it's a language that existed for real, but would it ever make it up to now? That's a good question. Number 19 and 20 are Breton or Brythonic. Number 18 is Island Celtic. I put Island Celtic because at some moments all of these possessions were part of a huge Breton empire, or huge British empire, if you want to call it as this. Not an Anglophone British empire, but a Celtic British empire, which has its origins from Brittany instead. There is also, as you can see, you have some Germanic languages that are fairly spoken, well, especially in the east, like Ostrogothic. You have, what else? Bavarian, Alemannic. Now, the part where you have like Switzerland and so, I put there many more languages because, first of all, I don't see that this region would have only one language, because original timeline shows us that there are 4 languages at least spoken. And then we have this interesting language of Romansh or Retro-Romanian in our timeline, and I was like, well, how about giving a Celtic language the chance to survive? And I put Helvetian. And as you can see, it's in this part of Switzerland where you have like everywhere mountains around and where it's fairly difficult to get. Number 8, yeah, Frankish, well, because this part used to be the homeland of the Franks, but you can still, you can debate about it. Punic survives even when the Arabs invaded, they still had towns which spoke Punic. Well, number 31 is obvious because it's desert, so you will have many Tuareg dialects, and I was not really in the mood to, differentiate between them because I just thought it would make much sense. Yeah, and of course we still have like two Slavic languages. We have Carinthia and Slovene. Carinthia because this part would never be Germanized, and Slovene because, well, in our timeline we have there Slovenia, so it would make sense to put Slovene in there, and next to them you have a Germanic language, and only next to the Germanic language you have this new Latin. Good. Next thing that I want to show, well, there are a few things. First one here is the Christian Gothic flag, or the Christian fanatic that I mentioned way before. We have the democratic Gothic flag, we have the fascist Gothic flag, we have the normal Gothic flag, the imperialist one, the republican one, the Latin separatist one, and the technocrat flag. And when you ask yourself why at the end of my video, or my text, I said people predict that the Amalingian Empire will conquer the world and become an interstellar empire in the far future. Well, this was very intentional. I wrote a really short story about it, or short story, where you have a Gothic empire in the far future colonizing different star systems, and in one of them, which I call the far beyond telling horizon, they will have a rebellion, and the emperor will be furious and send out his best military advisors to see what's going on there. And I will put all of this in a link in the description. So I know it's a fairly long video, but even so, people, I hope you enjoyed it. And please, if you are motivated to do an alternate country video, just post it. You can also post it here in my comments, or just be motivated to do it, guys. And I mean, if the contest of Alternate History Hub is not taking place, or if he has troubles to do it, well, we are always free to do it in our own way, collaborating each other. That's what Alternate History is about. And even so, nothing against Alternate History Hub, as I said in the other video. But what I want to say is, we don't need that our alternate history countries must be shown on some other channels. We can do it as well. And this should be just like the first step. And I hope many more will follow. And if not, it's fine. At the end, we should all be happy about what we are doing. And guys, I wish you a really nice day. I thank you so much and so a lot for paying attention to this video, and I will see you next time on my next video. Have a great day, guys. Bye.